Welcome to Garden Plants with Jim Putnam. Let's talk Miss Lemon Abelia. This is Miss Lemon Abelia from the Southern Living Plant Collection. One of my absolute favorite plants for just kind of year-round interest. We're shooting this at the beginning of February just to show off how colorful this is and what a bright spot it is in the garden, in the winter garden. So it's got four-season interest, compact form, really beautiful, bright variegation. This is a great pollinator plant. Miss Lemon Abelia is maintainable at about 3 feet in height by about 4 feet in width. It will get a little taller than that and a little wider than that if you just let it grow and grow, but it's easily maintainable at that perfect little low, slightly wider than tall dome. These start blooming in about June. They're a little later flowering than a lot of our other flowering shrubs, but once they get started, they just flower all summer long. Some people call this a light pink flower. It's really just almost white. The flowers don't necessarily show up all that well on these variegated plants because the flower color is so light, but the bees know they're there and other pollinators know they're there, and they're just absolutely love these. Miss Lemon is hardy in zones 6 to 9. I will say that in zone 6 in colder winters, they will thin a little bit. So we're calling this plant evergreen, but semi-evergreen in zone 6, fully evergreen down in zone 9. I'm in zone 7B here in Raleigh, and we'll get a little thinning just based on how cold the winter is, but it's, look at this right here at the beginning of February, and we've had some cold weather. So I would call this pretty daggone evergreen. The foliage is green with a yellow edge that can become kind of creamy white over time on the older leaves. And in the wintertime, it gets this little bit of pink hue to it, depending on how cold it is outside. Really great winter interest plant. These are, most people are going to say Abelias for full sun or part shade. I will say that Abelia that I see around the city of Raleigh that are in more shade actually do quite well. They'll stretch a bit, so they require a little bit more pruning, but I would actually call them sun or shade. If you put them in more shade, prepare for probably a little less bright variegation and a little more pruning, but really adaptable to almost anything. So where are we going to use this low mounding variegated flowering shrub that's great for pollinators? Well, almost anywhere, really, in any purpose. These are great foundation plants, and they can be maintained a little bit smaller than this one that we have here. We've got plenty of space to let this one get full size, but this thing can be maintained down in the 2-foot height range and 3 foot in width if you wanted to without a whole lot of work, honestly. These can be planted in large groupings and masses. They're very, very drought tolerant once they're established, so they can go on slopes and banks, that kind of thing. If you've got a kind of a dry part shade area, they can compete with tree roots. Once they're established, you got to get them watered in. But great for low foundations. Good container plants, probably in zone 8 and 9, maybe even 7B where I'm at. But really, just kind of overall, very good multi-use plant because we don't have a lot of these low doming evergreen shrubs that we can use in the world where we're putting more and more houses on slab and we need lower and lower shrubs because the windows are lower, patios are lower, that kind of thing. Perfect shrub for that. Abelia are just one of those groups of plants that I just don't worry a whole lot about when I'm planting it. These, as long as it's well-drained soil, you wouldn't want to put it in an area that stays wet all the time. But any sort of well-drained soil is perfect. We have clay soils here in my area, so I mount everything up a bit just to make sure I'm not drowning it. Incredibly drought-tolerant plant once established. And I'm always worried when I'm saying drought-tolerant, it means you can plant it and just forget it. That's not necessarily the case. These, like anything else, need you to pay attention to it for a season or two. Make sure that if it gets extremely dry, that you are occasionally watering it. But once they're established, this is one of those plants that you could probably never water in my area where we get kind of regular rainfall. Even if you go 2 or 3 months, probably not water it, and it'll be fine. So that's the kind of drought tolerance we're talking about. That doesn't mean the plant thrives in those conditions, though. So keep that in mind. If you do go 2 or 3 months during the summertime, just like anything else, it would probably appreciate a watering to keep it looking its best. So extremely, extremely drought tolerant. But again, I always worry when I say that somebody's just going to ignore it to the point of it not looking its best. This really is a low maintenance, low input plant. You know, once it's established, once it's rooted in. I will fertilize everything in this landscape in the late winter, early spring with an organic fertilizer. We keep it mulched, we keep the weeds away from it. Other than that, really just nothing to do on this plant. Pruning wise, you can kind of keep a natural form by taking these, the growth is like this. It comes up and out, up and out. So any of these pieces that are up here on the top, you can just follow them down into the center of the plant and cut them low inside the plant and leave it as just kind of a natural looking shrub, or it can be just sheared. If you just want to shear it like a boxwood, you can. The time to do that would be late winter, early spring. It blooms on new growth during the season. And so these get pruned late winter into early spring, and then they bloom all summer long. If it ever needed to just be completely reset, you could do that as well. Once it's 3-4 years old, you can cut these to 6 or 8 inches tall in the late winter, and they'll come right back out of that. These are extremely pest resistant. Rarely do, you know, there's insect resistant, disease resistant, deer resistant, rabbit resistant, all the things you'd like in an ornamental, you know, plant like this. So this is Miss Lemon Abelia from the Southern Living Plant Collection. This is really a kind of a low input, big impact plant that you can keep in a low mounding habit with year-round interest and pollinator approval. So thanks for watching.